Cabula mama, cabulang sa ipon.
In 2015, 21 years after the end of apartheid, South Africans are still trying to establish an effective and truly equitable education system. Under apartheid, the education system was segregated and inequalities persisted through the enforcement of Bantu education. Bantu education separated schools by race, designing different curriculums and setting different budgets for each band of schools. The South African Schools Act of 1996 united the racially segregated school systems under one educational system, promising to fund schools equally. However, the effects of systematic inequality under the Bantu system left a wide rift between the physical and curricular equality of black and white schools. Given this history, equal funding for all schools could not be truly equitable. Though the South African Schools Act outlines what the new public school system is to look like in a democratic South Africa, it fails to discuss any provisions to equitably bridge the prevailing gap between black and white schools. This has left public schools with overcrowded classrooms, an unprepared teaching staff, and lack of resources. Administrators, teachers, and students face the real ramifications from these infrastructure inequalities in their daily lives. For the purposes of our discussion of these issues, we will use the term infrastructure to refer to the state of physical facilities, quality of learning materials, amount of school personnel, and equitable funding in a given school.
This documentary draws on research conducted in King Williamstown, South Africa, which is a small town in the Eastern Cape province. We visited 4 different schools in the area, ranging from a small city to a rural community. At each of these schools, we interviewed administrators, teachers, and students about their experiences and their perspectives on the South African education system. We also met with a local branch of the Equal Education Organization, which is an activist organization that aims to mobilize youth to advocate for the equal education promised to them by their democratic government.
The original South African Schools Act undeniably took important steps toward the equalization of education for all students. However, the Act did not include clearly defined guidelines or requirements for the physical condition of schools. Decades of inequitable funding and allocation of resources meant that thousands of formerly all-black schools under Bantu education were made of improper materials such as wood and mud, and were left without access to necessities such as clean water, electricity, and proper sanitation. Without governmental intervention specifically targeting these daunting but urgent conditions, other moves toward equalization could only go so far. In 2007, the government responded to these lingering symptoms of Bantu education by amending the Schools Act to include a section that enables the Minister of Education to prescribe and enforce the implementation of minimum norms and standards for school infrastructure. However, this amendment still failed to define requirements for the physical condition of all public schools. Without a clear articulation of such requirements, schools in need would continue not to see real change. In May 2011, the Department of Basic Education's National Education Infrastructure Management System report revealed just how far South Africa had to go in terms of equalizing school infrastructure. Of the 24,793 public schools, 3,544 did not have electricity, 2,402 schools had no water supply, 2,703 schools did not have any fencing, and 22,938 did not have stocked or functioning libraries. The bulk of the schools in severe need are situated within the Eastern Cape province. According to the same report, over 400 schools in the Eastern Cape are classified as mud schools, schools made out of mud or other unsuitable materials. In 2011 and 2012, Equal Education launched a campaign calling for another amendment to the Schools Act, this time one that would include clear structural requirements for all public schools. After 2 years of sustained action, protest, and research, the government adopted the Norms and Standards for School Infrastructure in 2013.
the minimum norms and standard was then something that they channeled through the Department of Education to say, in fact, there needs to be a binding, a legal document, a statute that says this is what a school should look like. It should have A, B, C, and D for it to be called a school. Because in reality,
the Norms and Standards Act included timeframes for implementation as a way of holding the government and schools accountable. By 2023, all schools are to have necessities like water, toilets, classrooms, and fencing. All other standards are to be met by 2030. However, the urgent need for action on the issue of infrastructure was once more brought to light in 2014, a year after the adoption of the Norms and Standards Act.
and then the Michael Komape campaign is the same as the Norms and Standards campaign. It was named after a 6-year-old who died in a pit latrine in Limpopo because he had fallen in the pit latrine and he passed on. So the campaign was called after his name in commemoration of his passing on. And that was a clear indication that if our government was doing what is just minimum of its standard to say this is what we're going to do, and doing and fulfilling what is just expected, the minimum that is expected of them, Michael Komape wouldn't have died the way that he did.
Though the tragic death of Michael Komape is a particularly devastating effect of improper school infrastructure, schools across South Africa face various degrees of infrastructural challenges on a daily basis.
You must have geography, you must have atlas, you must have a globe. If I have to give direction for a child in a globe, I have to create something out of my own mind. For example, use an orange, so that they can have an idea what a globe is. So indeed, the resources in order to fulfill our obligation in terms of teaching learners, so that also learners can have the understanding of what we're talking about.
You will find that every time you go to the toilet, first there's a smell. Every time you cross there will be like a bad smell. And when you enter there, and you find that the toilets are very, very dirty, and it's very hard that.
Most schools dealing with these issues are tired of waiting for the slow process of government intervention. Some, like ZK Matthews, a rural high school with the most severe infrastructural issues of the schools we visited, are seeking help from third parties.
On a need basis, we go to different non-governmental organizations to ask for assistance. Like this NGO here that donated those computer lab. And also, they are very also careful of who to go there. They are very strict that you must not go there, must get permit, because they don't want that equipment to be damaged. So on a need basis, we go to different non-governmental organizations to ask for funds or to fund a particular project that was in.
However, these kinds of third-party donations are, as mentioned, unreliable and often not sustainable. Furthermore, well-intentioned charities and NGOs can become a crutch for the government, taking on tasks that should be the job of the Department of Education.
Because like when you need help at times, you don't care where it comes from. I just need to be out of the barrier that I'm in. I want to break the chains and to be liberated from the struggle that I'm in. So sometimes people it doesn't really matter as long as I just get out from the system that I'm in. But in all reality, as an activist in a democratic country, you want to see your government that you put into power actually doing the work. There's a lot of budgets. There's billions in place. Even the Minister of Finance had declared in his budget speech that he's actually allocated for the implementation of norms and standards for the Department of Education. You want to see that your voters, your taxpayers, your citizens of the country, all those three things, in essence, speak louder and speak in volumes for you to be able to actually say you need to put and hold the government accountable and to implement and to give to its citizens what is rightfully theirs. Education is a constitutional right. You've got a right to education. Now, what type of education is it that you are giving to the people? And are you giving a South African child from a public school education if you're saying to them you're going to go study in a mud rondavel with no chairs, with no blackboard, with no textbook, and with a teacher that is coming from a way distance to come to work, and at times you're going to arrive late, or because of weather conditions, you might not even make it to the school. Are you then responsible enough to say you are doing your job quite well? Just the minimum of what needs to be done. I don't think so.
Despite these institutional challenges, teachers, students, parents, and community members are trying to find ways to initiate change from the ground up.
Commitment of teachers is necessary for creating opportunities for students to learn and excel. Teachers often face difficulties in teaching when it comes to lack of resources. Therefore, teachers have to be innovative with what material they have and be dedicated to address the needs of each student. The teachers at Funiwe Senior Secondary School have found a creative solution to help their matric students pass despite limited resources.
We decided that our matric are going to stay in and sleep here. This is not a boarding school, sleep here at school. We organized mattresses. We said the kids do not have enough time to study at home. They are being disturbed. It's either they are being disturbed, there is no quiet place because the huts are small, or there is no food. So we decided as the SMT school management team with the teachers that our kids are going to sleep here at school. We organized mattresses, and then we cooked for them. The aunties cooked for them, and we said there's only one thing that we have to do in this premises. This space is for studying and nothing else. Your worries that are happening in your family, they are none of your business. Whatever that is happening out of these premises, it's none of your business. Your business is to study, and they did that, and it has been working wonders for us.
The perspectives of teachers is vital because they are focused on the academic achievement of students and therefore understand what resources are necessary for achieving. Teachers must take up their role within schools to help students succeed by dedicating time beyond the classroom and by advocating for appropriate resources. School governing bodies provide the opportunity for issues to be discussed and important decisions about schools to be made. Those who have the most voice on school governing bodies are parents. For the March 2015 school governing body elections, Equal Education campaigned parents to participate because currently parent involvement is limited.
While I was in the junior school, my parents were heavily involved in the Parents Teacher Association, the PTA. So, they were very involved in there, but then once I got to high school, they were kind of like, you're on your own now, deal with it. So they dropped off a little bit, and they aren't so as much involved anymore, but they are still involved in some way.
Parents must make education a priority and get involved in their students' schools in any way feasible. Their involvement is vital in advocating for change and in supporting their children in their own advocacy for equality. Students also hold positions on school governing bodies. These student members are selected from the Representative Council of Leaders, which is a group of students elected by students to voice the concerns of the student body.
How I wish that the learners from this area would really understand and take it seriously, the value of education. Because when you see where they are coming from, the houses, in their condition, their only way out is through education. If they could really focus on that, I think it would be better for everyone.
When students do not take their role within education seriously, administration is able to act without the consent of the student body. The RCL provides a perfect opportunity for students to become active members in the decision-making process at their schools. But it is important to note that students may not be aware that they are being limited from resources and opportunities. Therefore, students must become educated on their situations and on what they can do to fix it. To provide students with this knowledge, Equal Education holds youth group meetings once a week at schools where facilitators expose students to schooling situations around the country and to current education legislation. From this, students have taken initiatives to organize, create petitions, and advocate to their RCLs and to their school governing bodies. This is important that students are advocating for their education and the conditions within their schools because they are the ones most affected by these issues.
Well, I joined Equal Education since 2012 when we are going to our first Congress. So the reason why I joined Equal Education was that it was so interesting and fighting for quality and equality in the education system. And helping other schools, knowing that Visual High School is better than them, but you just want to help, just to support and just give them some courage.
For me, it's the politics, the debates, and the heated discussions, and seeing people smile because of the work we do for their schools. Based on the fact that South African education system is so biased and unequal. Like, I saw a need when I heard about the organization in 2012. I saw a need for me to take part in it because it was for change and for improving other people's lives, making their lives.
Equal Education has put pressure on the government to produce results by monitoring the government's progress. Equal Education assessed the government spending on education in the 2015 Divisions of Revenue Bill and found that allocations for programs have been reduced to lower than in the previously projected budget. Most of the information Equal Education uses for their reports are accessed under the Promotion of Access to Information Act. They are concerned that this lack of transparency makes it difficult for citizens to monitor spending, and therefore they believe that information regarding funds for education should be made public. Transparency will help ensure that departments spend their budgets effectively because with this information, engaged students, parents, and teachers can hold the government accountable. Hopefully, this will also encourage the government to make education a priority and take initiatives in providing equitable resources. To achieve equality and quality in South African education, teachers must be dedicated to change through hard work in and beyond the classroom. Parents must be aware of the problems schools face and join the fight for equality. Learners must be at the very front of these struggles. Most importantly of all, real equality in education requires commitment, leadership, and strength on the part of government.
Pasuga ya bulaya.